Okay. Well, good morning. I think we're live again. Um, if you haven't already, please do mute your microphone so we can avoid any background noises. As Lucy suggested, my name is Eric Chatham with Civitas. We're a city's consultant for the CDBG program. This morning, we're going to do a brief presentation here with PowerPoint to go over the application cycle. For those of you that have received funding in the past, not much has changed. We made a few slight modifications to the application, trying to streamline it a bit more, even from what we did last year. So I'm going to go over the highlights via this PowerPoint, and then I will show you the actual documents themselves and where you can find them on the city's website. So as you may know, the city each year receives from HUD an annual entitlement of the community development block grant funds of about $1.1 million. You may be aware that Congress has not passed a budget for the 2022 fiscal year just yet. So we actually don't know the final number that the city will receive. But based on the last several years of funding, we're estimating roughly $1.1 million. We hope to have that in the next couple months. The CDBG funds are required to primarily serve low to moderate income households here in Meriden, Connecticut, as well as individuals and families with special needs. Eligible activities, same as it has been for the last several years. The city is able to provide up to $220,000 total in public service funding. So regardless of how much funding the city finally does receive, we are capped at $220,000 for public services. And then public facilities improvements. Based on the final budget, the city typically puts 20 to 30% of the annual funds available for outside agencies to improve their facilities. So that number's to be finalized, ideally somewhere in the neighborhood of another 200,000 for public facilities. For those of you that might not be aware, or this might be your first time considering applying for these funds, unlike other grant programs, these funds are provided on a reimbursement basis. So your organization, while you apply for funds and you may be awarded, you'll have to document that you have actually incurred and paid for the eligible expense throughout the program year, and then seek reimbursement from the city for those eligible expenditures. Again, please reminder, if you haven't already, please mute your microphone. We've got some background noise there. So eligible applicants here are other government agencies that are serving residents of Meriden. That might be the Public Housing Authority, other public health agencies working here in Meriden. Private nonprofit entities, which I believe most of you are representing, various nonprofit organizations, and other City of Meriden departments do apply for funds. Public works, parks, sidewalks, etc. Typically utilize some of the funding each year as well. There's a link at the bottom here of this slide. I think you're all probably pretty familiar in the past, but the application notice, or the NOFA, is published on the city website currently in the community development page, as well as the PDF fillable application document itself. If I can, skip ahead there. Here's a quick screenshot of what the website looks like if you're not familiar. And I've got you a red arrow here. There's two hyperlinks sort of in the middle of this page. Make sure you're looking at the program year 48-22. This is the city's 48th year of having CDBG funds, and this is the 2022 annual action plan or program year. Some historical information, prior program year information is on the website as well. So make sure you're looking at that 48-22. There's also some links just below the application links about eligible CDBG funds. You can read stuff as well about the CV program that the city had recently. Some links to resources on the HUD Exchange website for those of you that might not be familiar with CDBG. I'll show you the application document momentarily. Again, it has not changed in recent years in a significant way. Lucy and I worked together to try to streamline it this year, remove some redundant questions and some questions that were typically causing some confusion. So there's kind of 4 major sections, if you will, of the application. A quick summary page with the applicant's information, contact information, amount you're requesting, and a quick summary of the project. Then a project description where you're going to provide a little more details here, who's going to benefit from the program, how you're going to monitor and facilitate the program, your proposed timeline, and your outcome measures for the proposed activity. One section where we've had issues in the past is in the budget section, and I'll show you this momentarily. What we need you to show in the budget is the total project budget, not just what CDBG is going to fund. So if you're providing your own funding, or if you've gotten grants or other donations that are going to cover part of the activity's expenditures, then we want you to show the total expenses and then what CDBG is going to pay for and what those other sources are going to pay for. Now, I'll point that out again in the actual application document momentarily. There's also a list of other materials that you'll need to provide. Because this is a reimbursement program, we need financial documentation from each organization. So before we can commit funding to an organization, we need to make sure that the organization has the financial capacity to start this program or start the facility improvement, pay those expenses, and then continue operations while they seek reimbursement from the city. So we need to see your financial documents, financial help, as well as your nonprofit determination, 501c3 letters from the IRS, as well as registration with sam.gov, and I'll go over that momentarily. We also need copies of your bylaws and a list of your current board members. As I mentioned, your financial statements. And then we need proof of your organization's registration with the Connecticut Secretary of State. That should be pretty straightforward. You can just print off the page from the business search on the Secretary of State's website. Pretty simple. Just shows that you're in good standing and do have a legally registered organization with the state. And then proof of registration with sam.gov. For those of you that have done this in the past, there has been a slight change in the last year. For those of you that are not aware, sam.gov is a federal government website where all agencies and organizations that seek to either be contractors with the federal government or receive federally funded grants must be registered. It's a free registration if you haven't done this before. So don't be caught trying to get looped into. There's a lot of services that'll try to charge you a fee to help you register. It is not difficult. It is free. It does take a few days to get processed through. So if you are a new organization and are not currently registered on sam.gov, I encourage you to go do that right away this morning. For those of you that have registered in the past, as I mentioned, it has changed slightly. The website itself, the interface has changed, but also in the past, we would use your DUNS number and a cage number the cage number was generated from sam.gov. Now the sam.gov provides a unique entity ID. And so they're getting away from using the DUNS numbers and getting away from using the cage numbers. So we need from everyone now proof that you're registered with sam.gov. You can just search for your organization and print that page, print that screen that confirms you are registered and you have no exclusions is what the page will say. That effectively means you have not been debarred from participation in any federal programs. And again, for those of you that have registered in the past, make sure your registration is updated so that you have generated this unique entity ID. It does take sort of a recertification process to generate that ID. So make sure you've done that, please. And again, as we have done in the past, we'll just want you to go to that website, do a business search, find your organization. You can see the summary page, your organization, the unique identity, the ID will be there. Typically your address is shown, and then there's a statement that says no exclusions. And we just want a copy of that page. That is a statutory requirement to receive CDBG funds. So again, it's free service if you're not registered. It has changed in the last year, so I encourage everyone to take a look at that promptly to make sure you're all set with sam.gov. The application submission process has not changed in the last couple of years. We're going to request one original copy with all original signatures on the few documents that require original signatures, and then 5 copies of that application. We have a committee, or the city has a committee that reviews and makes recommendations to council. And so we provide each of those committee members with a binder with all the different applications. So applications are due to the Department of Economic Development, Community Development Office, room 134 there at City Hall. That's Lucy's office, by 4:30 p.m. on Friday, March 9th. So you got just about a month there before they're due.
A quick interruption, Eric.
Ahead,
that's Wednesday, March 9th, I take it, right?
Sorry, let me look at the calendar.
Because I think it's referenced a couple times in the application, and March 9th is a Wednesday.
Yeah, Lucy, when do you want to do? That is a 9th. Is a Wednesday.
Thanks for catching that, Ed. We do want it on that Wednesday.
Okay.
The 9th. Wednesday the 9th. Thank you.
Thank you, Ed. Thank you, Lucy. Sorry for that confusion. Wednesday, March 9th. So still you have roughly a month to get that in. Some key dates, I've highlighted 2 requirements here for you. Make sure you're putting these on your calendar right away. As we just said, March 9th, the applications are due into the office. But the following Wednesday, March 16th, anyone that has applied will be required to attend the city's first public hearing, and you'll be asked to make a brief presentation about your application. This is not a formal presentation, so you don't need to prepare a PowerPoint or anything like that. You'll just ask to be made to make some remarks about your organization and your proposed program. So fairly informal, nothing necessarily to prepare, but it is a required attendance. The committee would have by that time at least had a moment to review the applications, and so they might also have questions for clarification about your program or your organization, etc. From there, March 30th, we will begin a 30-day public comment period for the city's annual action plan. So this is our full document, our plan for HUD on how the city will administer the CDBG program for the 2022 program year. And so nothing necessarily required of the organizations, but you will see our funding recommendations will be published in that action plan. 30-day comment period starts on March 30th. A second public hearing on April 20th via Teams. You're not required to attend that. You won't be requested to make any presentations there, but that'll be an opportunity for the public to comment on our funding recommendations and the annual action plan. April 30th, the comment period ends, and then we take the proposed annual action plan and budget recommendations to City Council on May 2nd. Assuming City Council approves our submission, we submit the annual action plan to HUD on May 16th or no later than May 16th. And then HUD has 45 days to review and approve that plan. And then our program year begins July 1st. These last few dates are somewhat subject to change if Congress continues not to pass a budget. then we will be delayed in submitting our annual action plan to HUD, and of course be delayed in actually having the funds. Hopefully budget is passed relatively soon and we're able to maintain this schedule and have funds available starting July 1st. If you have any questions between now and the time your applications are due, or even through the application process, Lucy's contact information is here. Her office is right there in City Hall. I'm sure most of you know her well. And of course, her contact information is also available on the city website. Yep. In the comments, Darian noted and Lucy commented that the NOFA mentioned the public hearing requirement for March 15th. We were notified by Council Clerk just this morning that that is in fact March 16th. So March 16th is the correct date as we're showing in the PowerPoint. The NOFA will be updated promptly on the website. If you'll give me just a moment, I'm going to stop sharing the PowerPoint and I'll pull up the PDF documents for both the notice and the application itself and give those a quick review. One moment.
Lucy, can I ask you a quick question about the Secretary of State registration?
Yes, go ahead.
Of course. Yes, please.
The Women and Family Center was established in 1889 by an act of the legislature. Because of that, it sometimes takes us several weeks to get that back from the Secretary of State. We can't just go on the website and print something out. They actually have to go dig back into the records to verify we were established then. I'll get it to you as soon as I can, but I may be stretched a little bit in 4 weeks. Understood.
You're saying that just when you do the entity search, we're not asking for any kind of certification from the secretary, just entity search on the secretary's website, and then just print screen that confirm you're registered. You're not able to do that?
Anytime I've tried to do that in the past, no, but I'll try it and give it a shot. And if I can, I'll certainly get it over to you. But generally I have to contact the Secretary of State's office to get anything saying that we legally exist.
Understood. We're required by statute to confirm everyone is in good standing with both the state in which they propose to operate as well as the federal government. So we will need that. And again, if you can stay in contact with Lucy, if you do have to request it formally from the Secretary of Office, then Lucy can work with you to accommodate the dates.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, so two links that I indicated were on the website. Just the first one is the NOFA, or the Notice of Funding Availability. Just a quick announcement here and sort of a regurgitation of what I've just presented in the PowerPoint. A little more background about the CDBG program and how the city makes funds available through the annual action plan process. The application instructions in a little more detail here. As we just mentioned, this public hearing date will be changed momentarily, but it is March 16th. As you're obviously aware, we're on the funding workshop this morning, and we provide eligibility. A little more details about public services and public facility improvements, pretty straightforward. Those key dates again with, the one March 16th to be updated. Then the actual application
demasiado
document.
caro.
Yo no chequeé con Evelyn,
Oh,
pero
Good morning. If you don't mind, could you mute?
Okay.
Gotcha. Thank you. Okay, so here's the PDF, fillable PDF application. We've streamlined it just a little bit from the last couple of years, but should look pretty straightforward. The application summary here. Notice that we're looking for your DUNS or unique entity ID number. That's going to be the one you're going to pull from sam.gov. And then just your federal ID number. Of course, that's your tax ID number or employee ID number from the federal government. Simple information here. Then some project description, replying about the previous grants you've received from the CDBG program from the City of Meriden. And I want to draw your attention to item C here in part 2. What is the status of this program or project, new or expanded? For public services to be eligible to receive CDBG funds by statute or by regulation, the activity must be either a new activity, a new service, or an expanded service. So for those organizations that have received public service funding year over year, you have to be able, it's clearly not a new activity. So you have to be able to document how you're expanding your program. This might be, for example, perhaps you only offered your program in one portion of the year. Maybe you had a summer program. Maybe you could add a fall program. Maybe you only offer your services a couple days a week, Tuesday, Thursday. Maybe now you're adding a Wednesday or a Saturday service. Maybe you're bringing on additional staff to be able to have capacity to provide services for more individuals in the same program timeframes, but just more people can participate. Perhaps you've got one office in Meriden or you've been offering your services at just one location. Perhaps you can offer the services at another location within Meriden. So we can be pretty liberal, if you will, on what is the definition of expanded, but it does have to be quantifiable. So we need you to be able to confirm that. So if you have any questions on that, I'm happy to follow up with you later and review some ideas on how you might expand. For organizations that have received funds in the past as well, maybe you're wanting or considering offering a new service or a new program for your clients, and you need some seed funding to get that program up and running. That would be considered a new program or a new service, and quite frankly would be ideal for CDBG. It's certainly easier to document that this is a new program than to try to confirm those expansions. As I mentioned, the CDBG funds have to primarily benefit low to moderate income households or households with individuals with special needs. And so you'll have to document how you're going to be able to track that. Again, those organizations have been doing this for many years. Understand that you'll have to report on income, race, and ethnicity of your program participants, and documenting that they are primarily low to moderate income. Some groups of the population are considered by HUD to be presumed low to moderate income. And you can read more about that on the HUD Exchange under public service programming. But in short, if your program serves primarily homeless individuals, then they are presumed to be LMI. Elderly, disabled adults, illiterate adults, battered and abused women and children, for example, are all presumed to be LMI. And so that means that if a program primarily benefits elderly or seniors, then you would be able to document that your program primarily benefits low to moderate income individuals. Part E, if your program is specifically serving one of these groups, you check that off, and we'll make note of that. And moving forward, that will Lucy will work with you to sort of modify your reporting requirements, because now we essentially can assume or presume that these households are LMI or primarily LMI. Some quick information here in the application. Item I here is the description of your project. As I mentioned before, you're going to provide some details here, the scope of services, who's running them, staffing capacity, etc., as well as the goals and outcomes that you propose. Part K is your implementation schedule or timeline. Be mindful that we're applying for funds now that will be made available as of July 1st. and they'll run through June 30th of 2023. Lucy will work with all funded agencies to submit required quarterly beneficiary reports, and expenditure benchmarks will be in line with those quarterly reports. So we look for you here to provide a timeline and some benchmarks sort of coinciding with those quarterly reports. Here's that budget page I was mentioning. We haven't really changed this, but what we're looking for here is a simple breakdown of eligible expenditure types. And then in this estimated project cost, this is the total expenditure, then what CDBG will pay, and then what other sources of funds will pay. So it's unlikely, given our very limited funding, that CDBG is going to be able to provide 100% of the funding necessary for your program or your public facility improvement. And so we need you to explain where those other funding sources are coming from. And as I mentioned, you're going to provide financial documents confirming you have the ability to operate these programs or facilitate the improvements, and then seek reimbursement for funding. The final page is just a quick signature page certifying that you're familiar with the CDBG regulations. If you are not familiar with the CDBG regulations, I encourage you to go to the HUD Exchange website and look up the term basically CDBG. And you can find chapters on both services and public facility improvements to confirm you're familiar with all the requirements there. If you have any questions about that, feel free to reach out to Lucy. She and I can help you, point you in the right direction to make sure you have all the information you need before submitting. Okay, at this time, I'm going to stop the share, and happy to answer any questions. If you
Eric, I have a question or a recommendation, I guess, maybe to Lucy. In going through the application, when you get to that second to the last page, it says that there's additional documentation that has to be provided, and it only mentions the IRS determination letter and the financial statement. Your slide that you showed earlier had a whole bunch of other stuff, board of directors, it had a whole bunch of things in there. I think we should get the application modified to include everything that was on your slide. Otherwise, anybody that went to this meeting is probably just going to go by what it says in the application. And like I said, it only listed 2 out of the, I think, 6 things that you had on the slide.
Sure, we can do that, Ed. Thank you. If you have any, if you have a question, you can use in the bottom of the Zoom, you can use the little reaction emoji, and you can raise your hand or just wave at us, come off mute. Or some of you I've seen have used the chat feature on the right-hand side, and feel free to do that as well.
Is the
Eric, there's a
PowerPoint presentation? Okay, Keith French, quick question. Is the PowerPoint presentation available online?
It will be posted following this workshop.
Thank you.
The last page of the application where it says applicant certification, the date in there says June 30th, 2022. Should we just cross that out and put 2023?
Yeah, Lucy made that modification this morning, and we'll have the website link updated momentarily.
Okay, so we'll have the change. And with the application, you wanted 1 original of the application, and then you wanted 5 copies. Does the 5 copies include the attachments, or is that just the application?
All attachments.
All attachments also need to be copied.
Yeah, we provide a binder to the committee members, and they take them home and review them on their own. So they need all the documentation.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Yeah, I've got another
There's
question.
a question in the, 1 second, Ed. There's a question in the chat about the new and expanded programs. So the question is, if we've received CDBG funding from Meriden before, If we've never received CDBG funding from Meriden before, can this project be an existing new program or is it expanded? So is it considered new, even though it's existed before, but it's new to CDBG funding?
It would be, if it's new to the CDBG program, then it would be considered a new CDBG funded program for Meriden and therefore would be eligible. I'll add a nuance to
Okay,
that.
great.
Not
Thank
trying to get too far into the weeds of CDBG regulations. But if the CDBG funds are supposed to be provided under federal guidelines, the funding investment must be necessary and reasonable. And the term necessary from a CDBG standpoint effectively means you ask yourself, but for these funds, is this activity able to occur? And if the answer is no, then the funds are necessary. So those of you that have a program that's ongoing and you've got it fully funded with some other source of money, then you don't need these funds. And so it's not necessary to provide a grant for a program that is already funded and operational. So I would caution you to say that, yes, that could still be considered a new activity, but do you actually need the funding to sustain the activity?
A question, this just been confusing to me the last couple of years trying to fill these things out. They make reference in the document to ensuring that the audience that's served is at least 51% moderate income. They use the term moderate income.
Low to
Yet
moderate.
all the documentation from HUD seems to use low, very low, and extremely low. It doesn't have a chart for moderate income. So it's confusing as to what income level you're supposed to use, I guess.
Up to 80% AMI. So for those of you that are looking at the breakdown, Meriden does not request any breakdown further than LMI, but the CDBG guidelines say very low is 0 to 30% AMI, low is 30 to 50, and then moderate is 51 to 80% AMI. So for programs to be eligible for Meriden, we don't limit it to just very low or low. We do low to moderate. So that's anywhere from 0 to 80% AMI.
Okay, thank you.
In the beneficiary reporting, Ed, I'm sure you're aware that we ask if you've got that breakdown further that we ask for it, but that's not to say that the program is limited to some further income restrictions where we allow for what the program does up to 80%. Any other questions? I don't see anyone.
There aren't any other, there's not any other questions in the chat, Eric. And I'm watching to see if anyone's raising their hands. And they're not.
We'll update the application document to be a little more clear on the required supporting documentation as Ed suggested. Daria, we've updated that program date to June 30 of 23. So those documents, those links will be updated on the website shortly. This PowerPoint will be added as well as the recording here for this workshop. And as well, the timelines for submission and the public hearing will be updated in those documents on the website. So the application, just one more time, due Wednesday, March 9th. The workshop or the public hearing where you'll present will be the following Wednesday, March 16th, 5:30. And Lucy will make sure that you have access or a link to that Teams meeting on a virtual meeting via Microsoft Teams. if there's nothing else, we will conclude the meeting. Again, I don't see anyone waving their hand or off mute. So we appreciate your time this morning. Again, if you have any questions, you have Lucy's contact information. Feel free to reach out and she and I can help you with any questions you might have between now and the submission deadline. Thank you, everyone. Have a great day.
Great. Thanks, everyone.